picked up. Okay, recording. Awesome, man. Okay, cool. So, start with the first question then. What is your stance on people's ability to enact free will, and how much should the government limit that?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. What is your stance on people's ability to enact free will, and how much should the government limit that?
Right. So I believe that free will is perhaps the most important thing when it comes to individual rights, and the value of life. You can go deeper into that, and you can say why is it bad to murder another human? And the answer that I've come up with is that it limits the amount of free will that other humans are able to enact. Um, so you you say to yourself, how do you enact free will? Um, because this inherently goes against the laws of nature. Laws of nature surround us and bind us in many ways. Things like gravity make it to where we reach the ground again. Um, but we are able to make choices and do good or bad. Uh, what enables us to do that is, I believe, the soul, because it's inherently this supernatural instrument which to practice free will. Um, in that I don't entirely know the extent of how much free will we have, but I do believe that if we are going to continue to act as if it is possible to do good or bad, then we should continue to make laws that help enforce measures to ensure that we have incentives to continue doing good or bad. And so, as far as the government goes, I think that things that limit other people's free will in an absolute way, things like murder or stealing or assaulting people, that should be limited by the government. Things that people do um, on their own volition, uh, that doesn't necessarily and directly harm or limit the free will of others, that should not be touched by the government.
Okay. So then, moving from that, from the perspective of someone who knows the law, what are policies Texas can implement to try to reduce cancer associated deaths and try to lower the rate at which minors are becoming addicted to cigarettes?
Right. This one's tough. I've never really come up with an answer for it. And I think that um, a lot of greater minds ahead of me have tried that. And obviously, they haven't done that good of a job. Um, I think e-cigarettes were a big factor in that. And I haven't done enough research on this topic to properly tell you. But, um, smoking rates were going down, as far as I know, and jumped back up with the introduction of uh, vapes. But it's really tough to entirely gauge where the problem merges. Is it high school? Is it middle school? Is it college? Is it just a three-tiered test that people have to get through? Um, because you say to yourself, well, if you get through middle school, how are you going to get through high school? Everybody goes through those phases of susceptibility, and it's incredibly tough to monitor, especially in the digital age, and incredibly hard to properly put a stop to things.
Okay, awesome. So, as you know, our project is about the FDA ban on menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars. So, do you believe that banning menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars will stop the long term trend of children starting nicotine?
You could try to do a study on that. Personally, I don't think it'll have that large of an effect. I think you're still going to have that social pressure. Um, you'll have kids saying, why not just one? Um, it's tough because, if it's not cigarettes, then it's weed. If it's not weed, it's alcohol. It's any of these other vices that all have their own health effects. So to put a stop to cigarettes, I don't think you can do it necessarily by just saying, let's get rid of the flavored ones, because, then you'd say, let's get rid of flavored alcohol. Kids are still going to drink that. It tastes awful. but they still do it. So I don't think it has anything to do with the flavor. I think it's just the status and how it makes you feel at first hit. It's incredibly hard to determine.
So, do you believe that through banning things like menthol cigarettes, the effect will be that children will just start smoking normal cigarettes, and it ultimately won't really, since the logic behind the ban is that menthol cigarettes are easier to smoke, therefore more children start with those. So, do you think by banning menthol cigarettes, what will happen is the same amount of kids will smoke, except they will be smoking normal cigarettes?
It's hard to answer that, to argue that they'll just all keep smoking and all do different non-flavored things is tough because you say, there's got to be some kids out there that really do like the flavor, and that's why they do it. Uh, it's really impossible to determine without some sort of study on the matter. Uh, but I think we'll begin to see those effects as we continue moving forward. Um, After what the FDA has done in the past few years, I think the next step, if you want to properly enforce it, is to make sure all of these, uh, companies that have sprouted up with their own flavored e-cigs, if you're going to go after Juul, you should probably go after those companies as well. So there's a really odd regulation uh, mismatch going on right now. And I think that when it comes to that, you say to yourself, well, all of these other little companies, you don't entirely know what's being put into those as well as you do from a US based company like Juul. So going forward, I think it shouldn't be as much about um, let's get this particular flavor out of the way. This should be looking at the entire industry and making sure that you can apply policies in an indiscriminatory way that will properly look at each and every possible producer in the market.
Okay. You've kind of touched on this a little bit, but what is the government's role in the cigarette companies and the tobacco industry as a whole? As in, should the government be regulating these industries? To what extent should they be regulating them?
Well, when it comes to free will, the way our common law system has it set up is that as long as you're a minor, you can't necessarily make certain decisions, and that's relatively true. I think they put the age a little bit earlier, but you have these things that happen at the age of 18 that you want to have kids able to sign a contract for. Um, I don't believe that you fully sure for a bit longer after that see the world. You got some 18-year-olds, they're pretty dumb. So as far as it goes to limit minors from buying these things, I think they're doing what they can. But the simple fact of the matter is that minors will always have their ways to get their hands on whatever they want. Have an older sibling, or they'll have somebody they know. I think limiting it to age 21, 18 is all you can do right now. I don't necessarily know that going after the flavored stuff is going to help it any more um, than what we had previously.
Awesome. So, I don't know. Did I ask with the perspective of someone with cancer? What's the most affected? I have a list here on my phone. I'm going through. um, do you know what policies maybe McKinney or Texas in general is implementing? If they're implementing anything specific on cigarettes in Texas, or is it all federal?
I think that's mostly federal. Uh, the only policies that you could do probably county by county. I remember this from when I was younger and I lived in Garland and Richardson, and Garland was like the only city where you could smoke cigarettes, I think on patios or indoors or something like that. This is when I was real young, so my parents would always be like, "Oh, if we go there, there's going to be somebody smoking a cigarette." Blah, blah, blah. I know that is something that certain ordinances can do. I haven't really heard about it much of late because I don't think anybody does it anymore or allows it inside anymore. Um, And then as far as the state of Texas goes, I think Governor Abbott and the legislature have their eyes set on different issues, and um, I think they're pretty happy to just let this issue be for now.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so you talked about this earlier with vapes. Do you believe that the ban on menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars will cause many more people to start buying vapes and expand the vaping industry? And therefore, since we have data kind of that vapes are oftentimes more addictive than cigarettes because of the high nicotine content in them, do you think maybe more people might start vaping because of the ban on cigarettes?
Yeah, without a doubt. Um, if that's your way to get nicotine, then you're going to do it. You can talk about nicotine pouches or nicotine gum, but people that smoke, and I smoke sometimes, you're going to get to this point where uh, you're like, well, I want something to like hit me in the lungs, you know? Uh, and the gum doesn't do that. So unless you have this mindset of I'm going to quit now that it's been banned, you're not going to buy the gum and you're not going to buy the patches.
So, so you said you had a personal smoking with history. Can you give us a little background on that?
Yeah, see, I was 18 and I was heading to college, and I was at one of those introductory college camps where they, make sure that you can get some friends, and you're not thrown out of the loop by leaving home. And so we're all in a cab together, and we were all just passing around. I was like, yeah, what the hell, I'm 18, heading off to college. Um, and then, let's see, a few years later, uh, we were out at a bonfire and passed cigarettes around. It was like 4 in the morning anyway, so I was like, oh, what the hell. Uh, so that was interesting decisions made by a college-aged kid, which I don't necessarily know that college-age kids are the best and brightest that we have. Um, but yeah, that's the history right there.
Okay. So I asked you all the questions I have on my list. All right. Thank you, Bohn. This has been really good.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you,
Uh,
thank you.
was I supposed to ever say my name?
Oh yes, give me an introduction about yourself. I that was the one thing I did not have on this list that I probably need to. Yes, give
We'll
me.
just, yeah, cut this section out and
Oh,
then put it at the beginning.
yeah, we're gonna be cutting all this. It's all gonna be cut up. You're gonna be. Yeah, we're gonna make
Yeah.
sure to what you say fits our narrative. I'm joking. Uh, but yeah. All right. Yeah. Just introduce yourself. Who are you? What are your credentials? What do you do?
Yeah. My name is Dylan Bohn. I am a first-year law student here at SMU. I graduated from Texas A&M University with a BBA in business management last May. I went to high school in Plano. I grew up in and Richardson. Any other experience in the professional world? I did an internship at the White House, and I'm right now a clerk at the Texas Attorney General office in the Consumer Protection Division. Can't think of any other relevant credentials to nicotine. I did some research over something economics back a year or two ago that's published somewhere. It's all I can really think of.
Right. Right. But what about maybe your law credentials? Like I know you have going to law school right now, right? Things of
Yeah.
that nature.
Um, Yeah, then we go back to I'm a law clerk right now at the Texas Attorney General's office, Consumer Protection Division, uh, and I'm in law school. That's that's all it is right now.
All right. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for this.
Sure thing. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Good to go.
Yep.
All right. Hey, I'll see you and your brother like next.